Hey there, Jordan Sheridan live. Status Coup. It is what day is it? I don't even know. Wednesday, August 31st, the year 2022. Delighted to be joined by the one and only Kim Brown. Burn it down with Kim Brown. Let's burn shit up today. How you
It's
doing, Kim?
overdue. Hi, Jordan. Thank you so much for having me. The time for burning things down is long overdue, and I think today's slate of topics indicate that very acutely.
And by the way, Kim will be back solo next week. Colin's been on vacay, and when I'm handling tech, it's not really a pretty situation. So Kim will be doing solo next Wednesday and going forward. Yeah, I mean, I'm not even gonna bother with Trump. I did that earlier, but as President Biden was out, boostering for 100,000 more cops and talking like it's the 1980s again. The Columbus, Ohio cops, 3 police shootings this week alone. They went in and shot dead, like literally, like it was a Call of Duty quick shot. 20-year-old black man lying in bed holding a vape pen. So we're going to show that. We'll get to Biden and his words on the police. They're trying to like outright the right now on like who could slobber over the police more. It's really, really sad. Also, a story you sent me about the power of disinformation, particularly on a film set. And we're also going to get into the ongoing water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi. My strong suspicion, media, I've seen it covered for 3 days. It'll be gone by next week, out of the media headlines. But now they're running out of bottled water in Jackson, Mississippi, and they don't have any actual clean tap water. And the heat index the other day was 102. So it's really just miserable. Smash that like button, everybody. Share this live stream. The more people that press like, more people that will see this. And do your duty and subscribe to Kim's channel. Her Burn It Down with Kim Brown is in the description of this live stream. You go live. I got it. Tuesday, Friday, 7 o'clock Eastern.
Got it. That's it.
Damn, Skippy. So before I show the video, and I would, trigger warning. It's very, very unsettling, this video. Let me just read a little bit about what's going on here. This is from Common Dreams. Outrage over Ohio cops kills unarmed black man Donovan Lewis, who was lying in bed. An unarmed 20-year-old black man died Tuesday after being shot by a Columbus officer in the middle of the night while lying in bed. The third police shooting in Ohio's largest city in about a week. On Tuesday afternoon, the Columbus Police Department released over 24 minutes of body cam video footage showing officers going to an apartment building in the 3200 block of Sullivan Avenue to serve a felony warrant for Donovan Lewis. The video shows officers knocking on an apartment door for more than 8 minutes before a man answers and is arrested. Officers then detain another man inside the apartment and ask if anyone else is in the residence before warning that they would unleash the police dog. In the footage, the dog runs to a bedroom door barking before Officer Ricky Anderson, its handler, cracks open the door and almost immediately fires a single shot from his pistol as a startled Lewis sits up in bed. Officers are then heard shouting, "Hands," and "Come on out." At nearly the precise moment Anderson fires his gun, Lewis, who could be heard moaning in pain as he lay dying, was then commanded to, quote, "Put your hands behind your back now and stop resisting," as he's handcuffed and subsequently carried out of the apartment. So let me play. I mean, I'm not playing a 24-minute clip. I'm only going to play a short bit of it. But this is after they arrest these other people in the apartment, and essentially they shot and killed Donovan in less than a second. I'm going to play 20 seconds. And again, it's really, really unsettling. Here we go.
We're gonna send that dog in.
That's 43D 91
Hands. He's got some in his hands. Some in his hands. Hands. Hands.
Let me see your right hand. Come like this.
Crawl out here. Crawl out.
I'm going.
Crawl out here. Get your hands up. All right, cover me. I'm gonna go in.
I got you.
Hold on.
I can come up like this. But I mean,
I need cuffs. I'm out of cuffs.
Oh, fuck you.
Hands behind your back. Do it now. Hands behind your back. Call for a 24. Hands.
I'm going to play it one more time because it happened very quick. So you could just see, like, literally less than a second, they shot him.
No.
there's two windows. AC window, the last one.
We're gonna send that dog in.
That's 43D 91
Hands. He's got some in his hands. Some in his hands.
You have the floor.
So I'm obviously talking about Amir Locke in Minneapolis, who in an almost identical situation was at someone's house on the couch asleep, minding their business, when Minneapolis police came in with a no-knock warrant and shot him basically on sight. In Ohio this year, Jalen Walker, I believe that's his name, the young man who was shot 40 times by Akron police. And there's a couple things that jump out to me about this. First of all, there's who this happens to, and there's who this never happens to. Okay. So when we talk about police training and the many billions, which I know we're going to get into in just a bit, Jordan, that Biden is reauthorizing for the police, trying to refund the police. This is exactly what they're trained to do. They are trained to murder very specific members of our society and to make sure that other specific members of our society are treated with kid gloves. I cannot for the life of me understand how this young man laying in bed, I would and with according to the Daily Beast, this warrant or this warrant was attempted to be served, I believe, around 2:30 in the morning. So I think it's not unreasonable to think that somebody would be in bed at 2:30 in the morning. And for these trigger happy police to be basically wearing the reforms, right? When we talk about the calls for police reform, body cams is the main thing that is brought up in terms of accountability and making sure that the police are held accountable. But you notice that body cams doesn't stop the police from flat out murdering Black people and murdering brown people with no cause, unarmed people, no less, people in bed, no less. And it just need liberals and Democrats specifically to really understand this. Defund the police is not a catchy slogan. In fact, it is very uncatchy at this point, but it is a very specific policy demand, because you cannot continue to fund this to the teeth and expect, number one, your main reliable base, Black voters, to continue to vote for this bullshit. But then there's class divisions even within the Black community and different approaches to how Black people view policing within the community. We are not united on that. but for those of us who are on the left and understand that abolition is really the only way, because a system like this cannot be reformed. And I have no expectations that this cop is going to be held to the level of accountability that they should. Keep in mind that Ohio is also the same state in which 12-year-old Tamir Rice was murdered in an open carry state at age 12 for handling a BB gun. John Crawford II was just assassinated inside of a Walmart for also legally handling a weapon that was for sale in Walmart, and also not given the chance to put his hands up or do anything before the police came in there and started shooting him. So I think it's really important that we note, again, who dies like this and who does not die like this. I'm sorry, go ahead.
And the irony, I hate using that word, is they were serving a search warrant for him, Donovan, improperly handling a firearm. and other things like assault and domestic violence. But the search warrant, again, I don't know why it had to be carried out at 3 a.m. Just like I don't know why they had to go into Breonna Taylor's apartment in the middle of the night. Mishandling a firearm. This officer, who, by the way, has been there for 30 years, I don't even know how you could even see anything in less than a second. You open the door, boom. It's like he it appears that he just planned on shooting regardless. He had a vape pen, apparently. So now, if you're startled in the middle of the night and you had a vape pen in your hand, that can get a cop off because I thought it was a gun. I mean, it's just crazy, and it doesn't happen to white people. I've never heard of something like this happening to a white person in my life. And this comes, let me get the exact stat, but this is the 3rd police shooting this week in Columbus. Early last week, an officer fired a gun at an altercation in Hilltop, but it didn't strike anybody. An unidentified 17-year-old was wounded by police Saturday afternoon during a traffic stop on the Near East Side, and they're expected to survive. And the mayor of Columbus, gave some ham-handed statement. Quote, when our officers have done the right thing, then we're going to stand with them. And when they do the wrong thing, we're going to hold them accountable. Yeah. I mean, I don't really know what held accountable is, because to tell you the truth, we've seen some officers go to jail, but it doesn't seem to be deterring any of these other officers. You can't blame this on training. This guy's been in there for decades. I don't know.
Same thing with Kim Potter, the police officer, right,
Yes.
who murdered Dante Wright, a very experienced officer, many decades on the force, even a field training officer. So of course she should have known fucking better between her taser and her pistol. It's perplexing because in the same state of Ohio, was this 2 weeks ago, Jordan, when the guy ran up in the Cincinnati FBI office trying to shoot FBI agents with a nail gun, then got in his car, took officers on a high-speed chase down the highway, and was able to be negotiated with for several. I'm sorry, I don't mean to laugh because it's not funny, but it's so funny. I have to laugh because it's so sad and tragic. This man shot at police and was given the opportunity and the latitude to negotiate with cops before inevitably they was just like, fuck it. Like, you have shot too many bullets at police. We absolutely have to kill you now. But you just see like what exactly white folks have to do in order to get killed by the cops compared to what black folks regularly do: lie in bed, lie on the couch, be at the park, mind their business. There is no reforming this system. And I cannot take Democrats seriously about the issue of police reform. Number one, when it seldom comes up, basically, it's only raised by people of color by and large. The George Floyd Justice and Policing bill was a joke, and that's part. I'm actually not even sad that it didn't get passed, or in the form that it was passed. I'm not too crazy about that, because when you take out things like qualified immunity, you're telling me and everybody else that you're not interested in truly holding these police accountable. If the police are still going to be paying out victims' families through taxpayer dollars, not through the fraternal order police or not through their own personal assets, you're telling me you're not serious about doing anything about this problem, because there is no accountability. There is none. The system, it works hand in hand together. Prosecutors, by and large, are not interested in indicting these officers because they still have to work with these same police departments in order to make their other cases. So in a country where I would imagine it's only kind of legal or kind of illegal for police to actually shoot and kill Black people, because for the majority of America's existence, it is not against the law to murder Black folks. Even for regular citizens to murder Black folks, it was generally okay. Not a lot of accountability to go around, but I don't see any of this changing. And I see it actually probably getting worse, especially given the rhetoric that is coming directly from the president about the urgency to add tens of thousands of new officers to the streets. It feels like 1994 all over again, in the worst way, with worse music as our soundtrack in 2022.
not tens of thousands, 100,000.
100,000.
Putting 100,000 more cops out there. We'll play the clips in a few minutes. Remember, not so long ago on the 4th of July, a white guy was a sniper from a roof in Chicago, in Illinois, in the suburbs, shooting down. I think he killed 6 people. He was taken alive. I mean, it's just, and I got to tell you, as a journalist, I've covered quite a lot of the Black Lives Matter protests. I was arrested a couple of years ago in St. Louis covering a Black Lives Matter protest. I'm white, so I can't speak to it, but at this point, at a certain point, the protests aren't going to be peaceful anymore, because if you're continuing to just assassinate black people and women, because Breonna Taylor, a few others, at a certain point, things are going to erupt. They talk about a civil war with Trump stuff, and all these loony white supremacists are getting more loony. This keeps happening over and over again for the last. I mean, it's been happening forever, but like in the media age, we think, Trayvon Martin, and then on Michael Brown, Eric Garner, Jordan Davis, Freddie Gray, but it's just crazy. And I very much don't see anything changing through electoral politics, because you either have Republicans that are just outwardly hostile to black people, or you have Democrats that, are going to put up placards for Black Lives Matter while then giving the police that are massacring black people more money. It's just terrible. And Jalen Walker, for example, while I was in Akron a couple of weeks ago, I mean, all of these places, the police department has 60% of the budget, while the city is rotting, other than the few blocks that are gentrified. It is the same thing in each of these cities, that the police are militarized, more money for the police, more weaponry to the police. Investigations start out internally, which is, a joke. If you're lucky, you'll get a decent prosecutor. But in the case of George Floyd, the prosecutor wanted to charge him with 3rd degree. And it took Keith Ellison, one of the few progressive prosecutors in America, to come and say, no, we're going to charge him with 2nd degree manslaughter. And a lot of these places, the district attorney is in bed, like you said, with the police. So they're going to throw, minuscule charges. So I don't know what the answer is, but I mean, at this point, this clearly shows, I don't know how you could claim I feared for my life. You can't see in less than a second a threat. You just can't.
So we understand that, that whole "I fear for my life," that's just something to say. That is, the magic words. You just got to say the magic words, Officer Johnson, and you will be cleared of this. I feared for my life. That's all they have to say in order to establish enough of a justification for them to have used deadly force. And, Jordan, I here's the thing. I mean, this is for all systems of oppression. It is incumbent on those who are the beneficiaries of that system to help end that system. And, so those who are in power are very disinclined to do that. So when we talk about patriarchy and misogyny, for example, and rape culture, for example, like these things don't end without the assistance of men, without the elevation of men's voices, without men helping to keep other men accountable. Racism, white supremacy, neocolonialism, it is the same thing. This does not end without white folks. And I'm talking about white folks showing up in 2020 like they showed up for Breonna Taylor and George Floyd. But the thing is, our white friends got tired. They said, wait a second, the police are out here tear gassing us too. This isn't fun anymore. I think we're going to go back in the house. And you saw a lot of that energy sort of deflate after that 2020 summer of all those marches, because our allies and our comrades learned a very difficult and harsh lesson that if you are white in America and you put your privilege out there in support or in defense of non-white people, you too will become targeted, right? I call the white viewers of Burn It Down with Kim Brown, I call them the John Brown Brigade, but I always caution them, don't forget what happened to John Brown, right? But I think that there are enough white folks who are aware now of their privilege. They are aware more so of the ways that systemic racism, it literally murders Black people. It kills Black people in ways that white Americans would never, ever experience, right? And I think I hope more white people now than ever are aware of that. And we've seen instances in like smallish examples where white folks will go put their bodies between them and the police. And I've seen the shit work. I've seen it work. I've totally seen it work. So it's about being as mad about police violence as you are about the Dobbs decision, right? If people are willing to show up at Brett Kavanaugh's house to stand in defense and in support of abortion rights, which of course affect all pregnant people, we need you to be out there in front of Brett Kavanaugh's house or out in front of the White House, Joe Biden, or whomever the police chief is. Columbus. Like, we need that same sort of levels of action. So when you see these Black-led organizations in your respective communities, go stand with them, be a number, show the power system that there is more of us than them, and that you as our allies and our comrades are not going to continue to be silent and allow the police to disproportionately suck up all of the budgets and, of course, continue to enact violence targeted towards the Black communities.
And, before we move on to the father of the crime bill, President Joe Biden, I want to point out, to the wine moms in suburbia, I've met a lot of you. I know that you're upset about crime, and that's why Biden and Republicans are tough on crime again. But maybe you should look into why there's so much crime. I know, it might not really affect you personally, but, we live in a gilded age. There's not a lot of opportunity despite the marketing and rhetoric coming of a historic economic recovery. Most people are, kind of indentured servants or worse. We have people working 2 to 3 jobs. We have people scavenging for change that I've met to fill up the gas tank. Gas is still incredibly high. Food prices incredibly high. Electricity, rent, you name it. I mean, we're basically living in a caste system. So, yeah, you're going to see crime go up if people are basically pushed to the brink. Petty crime and even violent crime when people get desperate. So you might be doing okay. Not you, Kim, but you, the moms of America. But maybe you should realize that there's really underneath the hood, people aren't just bad people committing crimes and let's get tough on them. There's reasons for it. Which brings me to Joe Biden. Smash the like button, by the way. Almost 300 people watching, so smash that like button. Remember to subscribe to Kim's YouTube channel. The link's in the description. Biden was in Pennsylvania yesterday. I guess he's trying to outright the Republicans now, since the Republicans are suddenly like defund the FBI because they went after his fearless leader, their fearless leader. Who, by the way, I mean, you and I talked about it, but reading this latest DOJ thing, I don't know about conviction, but I think Trump's going to get prosecuted. We'll get to that. So Biden was there yesterday to rah-rah and, try and make the case that he's tougher on crime than Republicans, that Democrats are tougher on crime than Republicans, selling 100,000 more police officers. Let's take a look at just some of Biden's pro-police.
I know we expect so much from our law enforcement officers, so we need to support them. I know we expect so much from our law enforcement officers, so we need to support them. That's why my crime plan to help communities recruit, hire, and train nationwide more than 100,000 additional officers, accountable officers, for community policing. And I mean it. Folks, when it comes to fighting crime, we know it works. Officers on the street. I know we expect.
Community policing. Kim, can you please tell me what exactly 100,000 police officers doing community policing? What exactly does that mean?
I am in confusion because he just said, we know what works. Does it work? Can we get some documentation? Can I please see the study cited that indicates that the more police officers are out there patrolling the streets, that somehow crime goes down. These are the kind of things that really all these politicians, but let's stick with Jim Crow Joe here for a second. These are the kind of things that Democrats say that nobody ever bothers to follow up. There is no follow up from Chuck Todd. There's no follow up from Jake Tapper. Well, where is the evidence of that, Mr. President? Where is the proof of that, Congressperson, that more police actually equate it data-wise into lower crime statistics? There is no such thing as 100,000 community police officers. I don't even know what that means. Like, what does that mean? That these individuals are going to actually like physically walk the streets? Or I don't think so, because I don't think Joe Biden is familiar with the status of modern policing. They like to sit in their cars.
It's just crazy. I don't even know what he's talking about. It's just pouring gasoline on a crazy fire. I mean, a lot of the times you look at just these scenes at nonviolent protests, protesting the murder of unarmed Black people, and it's just like a row of like 30 cops that look like they're about to go to Fallujah. A lot of the times, the cops, at least initially, there's more cops than protesters. And now he wants to add 100,000 more. And you just hear this term community policing, which seems to be something that just came out of like a neoliberal marketing lab or something. Most of them don't even live in the communities they're policing. So I don't really know how you could do more community policing. It just sounds like a bunch of bullshit. But there's more. Let me play more of this.
There's bad. I've not met a cop who likes a bad cop. There's bad in everything. There's lousy senators, there's lousy presidents, there's lousy doctors, there's lousy lawyers. No, I'm serious. But I don't know any police officer that feels good about the fact that there may be a lousy cop. And I'm tired of not giving the kind of help they need.
I guess he's never heard of the blue wall of silence. I've never heard of a police officer that is cheering on a bad police officer.
Jordan, did you hear the audience start laughing at his dumb ass? And he was like, wait a second, I'm serious. It's like, yes. Did you hear how ridiculous you just sounded so much that the audience spontaneously burst out in unison into laughter at that audacious statement? Joe Biden, again, is a propagandist. He is probably one of the biggest propagandists of the modern era. Joe Biden does not believe in fewer police. He believes wholeheartedly that police and basically the criminal justice system are the solutions to society's ills, which is, again, in this appearance that he made, he talked about police are having to do everything. They're having to be the psychologists and the sociologists. And it's like, sir, if you were actually serious about listening to the, again, very specific policy demand of defund the police, that is the whole point, is to take money away from the police to give it more to community-based services, for mental health services, basic healthcare services, things that people could actually use that would likely make it so that gun violence and other quote unquote crime, whatever rich people determine to be crime these days, that those things go down. And they know this. Democrats absolutely know that when you spend money into more social services, you will get the desired effects of reduced crime, reduced poverty, reduced hunger, et cetera, et cetera. But America is on a mission. America is determined to remilitarize its police forces. And I'm really afraid, we talked about this morning on the Remix Morning Show on Black Power Media, about how we are going to see the reinvigoration, as though it ever went away for Black folks and brown folks, but the reinvigoration of the prison industrial complex, where, because of these laws that were passed on the books because of the 1994 crime bill, mandatory minimum sentences for particular schedules of drugs, minimum sentences mandatory for gun possession, the laws are already on the books. They're just waiting to be enforced. And Joe Biden is just telling us, hey, I'm about to send another army of 100,000 cops on the streets to reinforce these laws that are already there so we can refill up the prisons again because this is a profit generating engine for the United States to keep its citizenry incarcerated. And folks, don't ever forget, America, we're number one for the prison population. Like, this is how the U.S. handles its issues. And it's always very rich when the U.S. propagandists point the finger at Russia or point the finger at China and be like, oh, it's them that treat their people bad with all these human rights violations. Meanwhile, the United States is leading the charge for human rights violations against its own citizens and, of course, globally as well.
Absolutely. And let me play this last clip, which, again, Biden seems very intent on kind of outrighting the right, I guess. Here we go.
It's helping fund community policing here in Wilkes-Barre. But guess what? Every single Republican member of Congress, every single one in this state, every single one voted against the support for law enforcement. They talk about how much they love it. They voted against the funding. Flat out. Flat out. Every Republican in the House, every Republican in the Senate, every single one. I know we expect so much from our law enforcement officers, so we need to support them. It's helping fund community policing here in Wilkes-Barre. But guess what?
So he's talking about the, I guess, American Rescue Plan. There was police funding in it that Republicans supposedly voted against. If they did, good for them. I mean, I don't remember that. But it's just more, like you said, propaganda. And honestly, when you mix in this with them, talking about saving democracy, I think there's some validity to democracy being under attack, but it kind of gives them, I think it gives them a pass to just sneak in more militarization and more brutality with the police, because on the other end, well, we're the ones safeguarding democracy. Well, if democracy is, getting shot in bed, holding your vape pen at 3 a.m, then we need a different system.
That democracy is not universal. I mean, and I think people, from marginalized communities overstand that fact very much because, American society conditions you very early on to understand that, even though you can personally feel that you are equal to everybody else, at some point in time, you will be racially profiled, you will be stopped and frisked, you will be set apart for treatment that you see white Americans and even white presenting people do not experience. So when you say democracy is under attack, I would just have to ask, like, under attack for whom? Because for Black Americans, for Black folks, Indigenous folks, and our Latinx brothers and sisters, like, when has it not been exactly this way? And I'm glad, again, that the spotlight is being amplified, that at least there are people from the white communities that care about this shit. And not to say that there never wasn't, because we know that there was a significant amount of white participation in the civil rights movement. And again, there was consequences for that also. But for Biden to talk about community policing with a straight face in wake of all the data that we see, the ways that police disproportionately engage in communities of color and in Black communities. I mean, it's just laughable, but it just tells me that Joe Biden is perfectly okay with that. He doesn't have a problem with the racial disparities. He is perfectly fine with the status quo. He doesn't care that police are on a pace to murder a record number of folks this year, to shoot a record number of people and murder a record number of people. Like, I think we're on pace for over 1,000. And here we are just about to start September. And we just saw what happened in Columbus, right? With the police apparently extremely trigger happy. And that's not just a Columbus, that is everywhere. So we need to be more savvy when we're hearing this propaganda. And I need for also liberals to understand that this is a very important issue, at least for me. Let me not speak for all Black people here, but let me say this for me personally. Like, when liberals try to diminish the importance of police violence to Black folks and saying, oh, well, maybe we can't get everything we want. We're going to have to compromise. We're going to have to agree to disagree on some things. You're basically telling me that you are okay with Black people being murdered in their bed, without any consequence. And even if this cop in Columbus is held somewhat accountable, it's not going to stop another cop in the future from doing exactly the same thing, because we've already seen this happen numerous times, even this year. So it just be very, not you, Jordan, I'm about talking to the rest of them out there, be very deliberate and intentional with your language when you diminish the issue about police violence to potentially Democratic voters, because we hear you and we see you, and and we will turn up and turn out and spoil your little vote blue no matter who party. How about that?
Right. It's just really, I mean, as a white person, I can't really I can't feel it as much as you would, but it's really, to me, just disheartening, because the worst thing is when you feel like nothing's ever going to change. I do believe on certain areas in politics with organizing, we could make structural change. But I mean, I think it's very difficult to change hate and irrational fear and bigotry. And most of these cops have it. So even, the ones that aren't outwardly racist, they all, if you send psychologists across police departments in this country, head to toe evaluation, and we were looking at it seriously, I'd say a strong 70-75% of these cops would have to turn in their badge, either whether it's outright racism, or just illogical fear of black and brown people. So
And you see Biden. That's the thing, though. But so you recognize that, right? And you think Joe Biden doesn't recognize that? You think that he doesn't know that there are a number of basically junior Klansmen, as I like to refer to them, filling the police ranks? He absolutely knows it, but he does not care. This is a system that he is personally invested in, obviously, because he's been pushing these exact sort of policies for now 40 fucking years. So he's deeply invested in the police state, and he knows who the police state is overwhelmingly targeted against, and he does not fucking care. Democrats as a whole do not care. And for those who make the demands for defund and abolish, they're called extremists, Jordan. They're called extremists, and told that they're unrealistic. Like it's just the audacity that, like, I want our comrades and our allies to recognize that is the liberal and the moderate racism of the Democrats that we have been screaming about. Like, it's cool. I mean, not cool, but we can clearly recognize the racism of a Mitch McConnell or Josh Hawley or whomever else. But it is that polished package, slick Willie sort of presentation to liberal whites and to non-white voting Democrats that, hey, no, we're the party that gets it. We understand the oppression that you have endured, and we're here to help. Well, you're not fucking helping me with 100,000 more cops on the street. So how are we defining help here, Democrats? How are we defining help?
Right. Absolutely. And by the way, I mean, I just saw this, so I'll show it. I mean, this isn't murder, but it's pretty bad too. This is in New York City. Police literally just knocked the fuck out of this woman, just punched her in the face. So let's take a look here. I can figure out. Yeah, reform that. I don't know the circumstances, but it looks like the woman obviously was up, maybe touched the police officer, and he decked her, which still isn't justified at all. So, yeah, we're gonna keep going round and round in this circle. So
I hope not. I hope people take to the streets and burn this shit to the fucking ground. I hope that the Uvalde parents probably are going to take the lead on that, to be perfectly honest. Like, this police system cannot, it can't stand. It will not stand. And shit like that is a perfect example of, again, whom police, I couldn't tell the race of the woman, but unfortunately excessive instances of violence like that, I have to assume that she was non-white, right? I mean, not to say the police would not punch a white woman in the face. I've seen it happen online, but it's not extremely likely that that was the scenario that was playing out right there in New York.
I can't tell. Yeah, I don't want to say. I don't.
Yeah, I can't tell either.
But regardless, and by the way, it's all police. I mean, that was a black police officer who just decked that woman. So don't think like when you put on the badge, it don't really matter white, black, glow in the dark.
That's right.
You got some serious manhood and testosterone issues. Most of I've met police officers that are generally good people, and I'm sure they're not all horrendous people. But at the end of the day, when Biden talks about and tries to compare it to doctors or politicians, well, a politician for the most part, maybe slowly could kill you, but not in less than a second. A doctor, might give you the wrong diagnosis, possibly could kill you, but like not in less than a second, right? It's not really comparable. A bad cop will kill you, and most of them are doing it in less than a second, if not a few seconds. So
what other occupation in this country do persons have the ability to be judge, jury, and executioner, as you said, Jordan, in less than a second? It's only police that have the privilege to do that. Correct. So what the fuck is Joe Biden talking about? I'm sorry. Like, what is he talking about?
Moving on from one really awful situation to another, the media, we'll place our bets. I'm hoping they stay on this, but I doubt it. The media is now covering the water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi, the capital of Mississippi. Jackson, Mississippi, used to be a very wealthy, predominantly white area, but due to white flight and many other things, like many cities in this country, now it's 84% African American. And there has been, the more I look into it, just like a not even subtle battle between the all-white state legislature and the white governor and the black leadership of Jackson, which seems to be hanging over this water crisis because the water has been bad for about 20 years. In 2020, the EPA actually basically issued violations letters that your water plant's not up to snuff, your equipment's out of date, there might be bacteria in this water, all sorts of things. Doesn't seem like they did anything to rectify it. The governor has vetoed bills that would have helped provide funding for infrastructure in Jackson. Jackson's poverty rate is 25%. So obviously they don't have money lying around. And just a lot of things. The levees next to Pearl River. This most recent water shutdown is because the Pearl River flooded, which damaged the very badly insufficient water plant. The water plant was using backup pumps. And the levee system needs to be upgraded. Basically, it cost $1 billion to upgrade the infrastructure in Mississippi. And the governor seems to be, more focused on giving back money to the federal government as a sign of like sock it to the libs. This governor right now is giving away $130 million that was sent to Mississippi by the federal government for rental relief, basically saying we don't need it. And it's a liberal handout. So that's this Mississippi governor, in addition to refusing to take Medicaid expansion through Obamacare, is now sending $130 million back that hasn't been spent, that can be going to the people of Jackson, Mississippi, in addition to rural areas that are very impoverished. But he's sending it back because we don't need liberal handouts. So obviously you've seen in the news that there is no clean water right now for drinking, bathing, pooping. To flush the toilet. If you've ever been in that situation, it's very hot. If you can't flush the toilet, obviously things smell. But now the secondary problem is they're running out of bottled water. Take a look at this. The water crisis in Jackson, Mississippi has gotten so bad, the city temporarily ran out of bottled water to give to residents. Recent torrential rain coupled with years of water system issues have resulted in a crisis in Jackson, Mississippi, where the city doesn't have enough water to fight fires, flush toilets, or even hand out to residents in need. Jackson's main water treatment facility began failing Monday, according to Governor Tate Reeves. The National Guard was called up to help distribute bottled water as crews worked to get the water treatment plant back online. But the distribution itself proved unsustainable. Residents of all ages were seen waiting in lines more than a mile long at Hawkins Field Airport for at least 2 hours Tuesday for just one case of bottled water. The event was supposed to span 3 hours, but barely ran 2 as people were eventually turned away. When the 700 cases of water ran out, quote, "I keep saying we're going to be the next Michigan," said Geraldine Watts, 86, who was able to get water at a grocery store Monday night. And it looks like that's exactly where we're headed. As humbly as I could say, as really the only journalist that I know has stayed on Flint in this country, I could say this has similarities, but also differences. Flint, for the most part, was an acute situation. Greed, water privatization, switching to a new source. This has been basically building for 20 years. You also have last year in March, there was a severe winter storm like they had in Texas that kind of froze the pipes in Texas. Similar thing happened here. And the governor basically blamed the Black leadership of Jackson, Mississippi for that too. I want to show one comment that I think is, well, a few comments, but this is from last year. So we're not talking about right now. Last year, Governor Tate Reeves, who to me looks like a more sophisticated Klansman, to be honest with you. It's just my opinion. But Governor Tate Reeves told the media this week, again, this is in March of last year, "I do think it's really important that the city of Jackson start collecting their water bill payments before they start going and asking everyone else to pony up more money." Can you imagine him saying that about a predominantly white city who had no water at that moment? He gave that lecture on March 3rd in the state's capital. Thousands of homes near where he sat in Jackson were without even non-potable water. So he's telling them last year, "Hey, you lazy bums. I'm not saying the word race. I'm not calling you black, but why don't you pay your bills before you ask me to help you with that whole water thing?" But his lieutenant governor actually had more dog whistling. This is just pretty bad. The lieutenant governor, this was last year. Apparently, so far, they haven't said anything, too bad. This one. But the lieutenant governor reflected fondly today to the Mississippi Free Press on a much earlier administration. You remember Kane Ditto's administration? He did repair work on water and sewer. So what happened since then? Kane Ditto, who served as mayor of Jackson from 1989 to 1997, was the last white mayor elected to the position. So the lieutenant governor was, waxing nostalgic for the last white mayor, because apparently everybody since who's black, they can't handle their business there. So, if you want more, I kind of misspoke. I was on the Hill this morning. The governor, he kind of went on a veto spree after the Confederate flag came down. He seemed like he was angry about that. So he started vetoing a lot of bills, and a lot of the money he vetoed was to go to Jackson. Again, 84% black. He vetoed $50 million for the local hospital. He vetoed money to go towards parks in Jackson, Mississippi. I think black people deserve parks. He also vetoed a golf course for Jackson, Mississippi. Some people might say, well, why do they need a golf course? Well, his budget bill gives golf courses to the white wealthy areas, but he vetoed it for Jackson, Mississippi. So yes, this is a water crisis, but the media is not really digging too far into this. Is just straight up in your face racism. They basically want to make it seem like the old stereotype, like, just the black leadership, they're incompetent and they can't do it. Well, what do you want them to do? It's 25% poverty while you're depriving the state's citizens of Medicaid. You're sending back all this money that should be going to the people of Jackson, Mississippi. The minimum wage is $7.25 that this governor will not raise. I could go on, but your thoughts.
Here's the thing. So let's exactly examine this for what this is. This is intentional cruelty with the desired outcome to be the maximum amount of black people that die. There is no other way to look at that. If you are not enabling the local elected leadership to rebuild and invest in the infrastructure to the point that we don't have situations like this when the Pearl River overflows its banks, that the water system is completely unusable, right? I mean, for them to make the announcement that the water in Jackson will be unavailable indefinitely was just an astounding admission of the infrastructure failures of Mississippi and by the federal government. Because at some point, I don't see how, especially Democrats who hold the seats of power, basically, with the exception of the court in DC right now, like, how can you look at this situation and be like, you know, we cannot intervene federally in order to bring Jackson's water system up to a modern standard of operability, right? The only reason that the Mississippi governor has vetoed all of this money that would have, I guess, it benefited the infrastructure system there for the water. And the reason why the federal government has not interceded is, again, because the people that are being harmed here are Black. And Black people, unfortunately, we don't have any friends. We don't have any political friends. There are no political friends in local, state, federal elected office that care enough about Black lives that they would say, hey, no, actually, this is actually a priority project for the Army Corps of Engineers, so to speak, right? We are going to get people on this immediately and get this situation rectified. At minimum, start bringing in truckloads of water. If not the National Guard, I don't know if Tate Reeves is mobilized the National Guard. I think you said that he did. But if he and his National Guard are not moving quickly enough to make sure that people have enough water to literally survive, do like Eisenhower did when he was trying to integrate Little Rock Central High School in 57, send in the 104th Airborne. Like, put this military to use for something good, goddamn it, in America. Make them at least help out Americans that are in desperate need. But the thing about the Pearl River overflowing, and it is just the latest incident in a long line that we are going to see continue to be exacerbated by climate change, is the people that are going to be most affected by this. And it's disproportionately going to be poor people. White people have set themselves up, or at least those with money have set themselves up in places enough that, you know, the effects of climate change are a little bit less, right? They are not dealing with the sweltering heat waves to the extent, like, say, our unhoused people are out in California, and then again, this rain that we experience in the Southeast. So you're looking at that good old vintage. This is that good old boy vintage racism. This is that Orville Faubus racism. This is that like, you can't. This is that classic racism. So make no mistake about it. It's racism from Tate Reeves and also racism from the Biden administration. Because if they really gave a fuck, they would start working on the situation and not just let Mississippi abandon its Black residents in Jackson's to outright die. Yeah,
and I want to play a clip for those that didn't see it. I interviewed Danielle Holmes. She's after my interview, she's all of a sudden she's showing up on CNN and other places. So I'll take the credit. But she's really the lead organizer with Poor People's Campaign down in Mississippi. Mm-hmm. So I want to play this part of the interview because, I mean, she's been dealing with Tate Reeves and his ilk for many years. But this is what she had to say on the ongoing crisis.
And that's Jackson, Mississippi. And so even his the governor's refusal to allocate or appropriate funds for infrastructure this legislative session, because he did not trust the Black leadership that was leading the city of Jackson, right? And so we keep seeing these racist these extreme policies that are being put in place, and extreme neglect that are putting over 175,000 people in the city of Jackson in direct harm and danger because of petty politics. And we can no longer afford to play these kind of games with the governor. However, the mayor on yesterday declared a state of emergency before the governor declared a state of emergency. The governor failed to include the mayor in his press conference on yesterday. For whatever reason, but you make plans for a city and exclude the city leadership. That goes to show again the ignorance and petty politics of this state governor here in Mississippi, Governor Tate Reeves. The long-term effect, the residents, we know as residents that this is not an overnight process where the water will be fixed. We have been doing this work as a coalition, Mississippi Rapid Response Coalition, which includes One Voice, People's Advocacy Institute, the Mississippi Poor People's Campaign, and Alternate Routes. These organizations have come together for the last few years when the governor wouldn't show up for the community during the water crisis. And we've been committed to giving out water to citizens, feeding families that needed hot meals, and placing families in homes as well. Even during the winter storm crisis, we passed out portable heaters, right? And so we're here for the community for the long haul. We have launched a initiative, individuals to work throughout this duration, at least for the next year, through the Mississippi Rapid Response Coalition, responding to the community, making sure that community members have clean water and potable water. And so this just won't be an ongoing initiative while we're experiencing this water crisis, but until Jackson's infrastructure is completely safe and the water is completely safe for residents to drink, we'll be doing up to the task of making this happen for our community.
There's a bunch of things there. Number one, the Poor People's Campaign and activist groups seem to be doing more than the state government, which says a lot. Secondly, it's not in that clip. She was telling me, and again, you can't, completely connect the dots, but I've seen it in Flint. I've seen it in other places. There's a lot more women getting breast cancer now in Jackson, Mississippi. There are clear connections between toxic water, bacteria, heavy metals, and cancer. Flint actually right now is the biggest cancer cluster in America. But, the politicians, well, we can't say it's the water. No, it's the fucking, it's the weather. This has real consequences. And even just the governor is holding press conferences without the mayor. Where does that happen in an emergency like this? Just what's the difference between the governor and the mayor? Oh, we don't want to be seen with those black folks. It's just outrageous. I don't even know if Trump was this outwardly bad. Your thoughts?
Yes, he was. Let me just say, but in a different way, right? So again, the racism, can we talk about the different styles of racism, right? The racism has a lot of different styles. Racism got more flows than Wu-Tang Clan, right? Like racism can switch up its flow and do a little bit of that Southern drawl. Racism can switch it up and do that Queens bada bada bada, whatever the fuck Trump be doing. But this is again, vintage fucking racism here from Tate Reeves. And what the message that I keep getting back in my head comes down to basically how dedicated white politicians are, conservative and Democrat, by the way, to the Constitution, right? When people talk about their constitutionalists, all I hear is that, oh, so you believe that black people are 3/5 of a person, right? You believe that the 13th Amendment allegedly gives black people freedom from slavery, but don't get convicted of a crime or else you will have to send your servitude will resume. Your involuntary servitude will come right on back. So people who talk about, oh, I'm a constitutionalist, whatever the founding fathers said, the founding fathers believed that black people were fucking gorillas and monkeys. Do you understand? The founding fathers did not mention women or even Native folks in it at all. The Constitution is a document specifically for white male Christian property owners. That's it, point blank, period. And Tate Reeves is amongst those, that demographic, that property owning class, that ruler group of white men that don't believe that. Why should he share the stage with this black mayor? This black mayor is beneath him. This black mayor doesn't have his power. This black man likely has far more smarts and leadership ability than Tate Reeves. But it's that inherent racism. It is that investment in black inferiority and white supremacy. That is what you're seeing on display when the governor refuses to keep the black elected leadership of the affected place in the loop about resources or about states of emergency and all of that. To say that it's racism on display is almost not giving it its proper due, because we see the fatal ways in which racism can present itself. I mean, how can you not look at this and say that the governor of Mississippi is outright trying to kill or is indifferent about the deaths or severe illnesses of tens of thousands of his citizens, of his own residents. But because Black people are inferior, because Black people are 3/5 human, ergo not human, Tate Reeves could take his time. He don't care. He's not calling the mayor. He don't give a fuck if Biden is trying to send reinforcements. And again, that's what I'm talking about. Like, this is sort of like a pre-Civil War kind of thing. Like the North, so the so-called North, could intervene in this situation to help out its citizens that are being intentionally neglected here, in this case in Mississippi, but really this could be anywhere across the country. The federal government could intervene here. And if they gave a fuck, they would, but they don't. And they're going to point the finger at the Republicans and at Tate Reeves and be like, well, this is what you get under Republican leadership. But it's like, okay, well, who's in the White House, sir? Who's in charge here? Who is in charge here, Joseph Robinette Biden? You are. Do something.
Absolutely. And by the way, before I move off of this, if you really want to know more about this governor of Mississippi, currently he's embroiled in a $77 million TANF scandal. Before your eyes close over, TANF means temporary assistance for needy families. It's money in a lot of states and cities, just kind of a welfare program. And apparently $77 million worth of TANF money was redirected to donors of Mr. Governor Reeves. So he's in the middle of that. I'm sure I'll get off because, he's a white man. But anyway.
In Mississippi, no less. In Mississippi. So, yeah, he's goody.
We will stay on this. As always, the real story happens when the national media headlines cameras leave, which is definitely what happened in Flint. Rachel Maddow went down there for 5 minutes. She won awards for going down there for 5 minutes, and then the real cover-up happened. So we'll stay on this. Possibly, I'll go down there depending on how things shake out. So definitely important. Water is life. I hope we all agree on that. If you got toxic water, you got no water, you ain't going to make it that long. So we'll stay on that. And lastly, moving on to this, you brought this up to me, Kim, but, there's a lot of hubbubaloo about censorship in media and, we can't get rid of disinformation because censorship. And for the most part, I'm anti-censorship, but I also don't think that means we should just cheer on misinformation, because honestly, in this internet age, there's some really high profile people with a shit ton of followers that are just pushing lies and bullshit. And in a lot of cases, it's kind of endangering people. So let me read here. This is from Yahoo. Baltimore police walk back report of a violent threat on Lady in the Lake set. This is with an Apple TV series with Natalie Portman and Moses Ingram. The Baltimore Police Department has walked back its initial report of a violent threat on the set of the Apple TV Plus series Lady in the Lake and arrested a street vendor at the center of its ongoing investigation. On Tuesday, the police department detectives said investigating the case had, quote, determined that a local street vendor was upset that he had not been compensated by the production for lost business since he could not operate his clothing business while the crew was filming at the location. Authorities then arrested 43-year-old Keith Brown on Monday on narcotics charges. Brown told detectives that he had, quote, talked with a crew member at a security manager and was awaiting paperwork to receive compensation for lost business, according to the police department's press release. The press release also noted that, quote, preliminary information reported that a crew member had received a verbal threat of violence from an individual who he alleged also brandished a firearm. However, a police report provided Tuesday to the Times shows that the above narrative was later deemed inaccurate and the victim's recollection of the incident changed during the investigation. So yeah, basically it sounds like what they said happened didn't happen. And of course, Jack Prosobiec shared this. And by the way, I left out that they had, let me go back. Over the weekend, Baltimore law enforcement told media outlets, including the LA Times, that locals had threatened to shoot someone on the set of the show and attempted to extort $50,000 from the producers. So Jack Prosobiec pushed this. The Daily Mail pushed this.
Wait, Jordan. I'm sorry. Who told the Los Angeles Times?
The Baltimore police.
Ah, okay, just checking. I just wanted to make sure we had the origin source here of all of this shit.
And this spread like wildfire all over, right wingers and the Daily Mail. And this tweet points out, he's got 1.8 million followers, Daily Mail 2.1 daily readership. I mean, sometimes the media gets it wrong, but when you just breathlessly regurgitate whatever the police tell you, yeah. Dig in.
Are they not embarrassed? Are you not embarrassed? Are you not embarrassed? As any media outlet, and there were many that picked up this story and ran with the shit. I know y'all in the chat, y'all heard this story because this is only broken over the past few days, and it did make I won't say significant national news, but I did hear and see a lot of national media outlets pick this up, and it was just another way to, again, reinforce the notion of anti-Blackness, and these cities are so dangerous, and it's so imperative that we make sure that the police are there to keep things in order, because we can't have things like this where movie sets are being threatened by gangbangers trying to extort, right? Breathlessly, as you said, Jordan. And the origin of this chicanery was the Baltimore Police Department. And I believe the first outlet to publish the story was a local outlet by the name of the Baltimore Banner. And the Baltimore Banner has since deleted a number of tweets that they initially posted regarding this story, right? And the kicker is that all of this could have very easily been fact-checked if you would actually talk to the production company or talk to anybody else besides the police department. And this is the role that propaganda plays. And this is why propaganda is so dangerous and yet so seductive to media outlets, because, Jordan, I mean, the way that journalists are trained in journalism school is that you have to prioritize the official sources first. Whatever the official sources say, if police said it, or another government agency or entity, or other official entity, or elected official, however, if those are the sources that are putting out a set of facts, then you have to report that, right? You don't have to report it as true. You have to report that this was said by the police. But the problem is, so many journalists and outlets are so lazy, and they do this police say, authorities say, and usually the police and the authorities are the only sources that they try to verify this information with. They don't like to go talk to regular people out in the street like you do, Jordan, which I am very much appreciative of your work, because you do go talk to regular people, and the regular people usually know the story. The police will make some shit up. And I hope this serves as a very critical lesson to not only the Baltimore Banner, but all the other local outlets and national outlets that picked up this story and ran with it, because it's a very easy thing to talk about Black Baltimore in that way. Baltimore's dangerous. Baltimore's this, Baltimore's that. And that's the implicit racism and anti-Blackness bias that the media has made it easy for these outlets to just run without double checking or verifying that information as true. So all these journalists should feel embarrassed. They should feel ashamed. They should feel humiliated. And that's what you get, according, let me quote this very sage Baltimore philosopher by the name of Monique. When you do clownery, the clown will come and bite you. And that is exactly what happened to these journalists, to these media outlets. You just ran with what the police say, and now you look like a big damn dummy.
Right. And by the way, like, all of these film, like this Apple Plus, Hulu, Netflix, they got a PR department. Like, you could have just reached out to them. But that's the thing. I mean, listen, I wrote for a couple blogs back in the day. It's a mad rush to, get the clicks. Oh, Natalie Portman, other big names are in it. And we're just going to report, like you said, we could just say that this is what the police say. Doesn't matter if it's true or not. And this has created for forever. I mean, going back to Rodney King, this has created basically propaganda, setting the narrative, planting, little tidbits. Oh, well, the victim was on drugs and this, that, always released into the media. The shit they did to Breonna Taylor was reprehensible, the media there. But at the end of the day, like, why would like a clothing store stand go hold up the movies, like the film set? Like, it just on its face doesn't make sense. And also, like, people do get compensated for film, movies.
They do. They do.
It's just crazy.
And I believe in the Yahoo piece, the LA Times is reported that the police, the Baltimore police, said that it was locals making threats, not like a gang or not like an organization or whatever, a street organization. No, it was local, just the vague locals. And I hope this serves as an important lesson to media outlets, big and small. Cops lie. They lie all the time. They lie about things that you may not think the police would lie about, but they absolutely lie about everything. Everything that a police spokesperson says on the record needs to be verified, re-verified, and re-verified, because I assure you, the first statement that always gets put out by the police, regardless of the actual situation, is always going to be a fucking lie. It's always going to be a result of some wayward spin that was concocted by police public relations people, and it's usually not going to make sense, and it's usually going to be very easy and transparent to tell it was a lie. And so again, because of implicit racism, bias, anti-blackness in both policing and media and in American society at large, that's why it was so easy, such an easy story to swallow, that this film set had been threatened by obviously Black people in Baltimore who meant them harm. And turns out 100% of it was false.
And I want to just point out for you news consumers watching, I personally trust journalists who did not go to journalism school, like yours truly. Because let me tell you something, I took journalism 101, 102, and that's the bullshit they teach you. Well, before you do anything, we got to get this person's side and this person's side. It doesn't really matter if it's true. Really, that's actually more for like legally covering your ass to get one person's side and this and that. But honestly, for me, I learned just through doing. No, when I'm going on the road, the first person I'm trying to talk to is not a politician or a cop or a corporate CEO. Frankly, I don't care if I talk to any of those people. And if I do talk to them, it's probably not going to be officially like scheduled because they don't want to talk to me. It'll be, an unofficial ambush. But you want to talk to the activists on the ground, community members, the people. That's who you want to talk to, because that's where you find out where the bodies are buried, information-wise, and that's where you find out like where the truth lies. Are there some activists, community members, or this and that will lie to you? Yes. Are some of them that give you wrong information, not intentionally, but just because they're wrong? Yeah. I mean, at Standing Rock, I was chasing down shit that ended up being wrong 90% of the day. Not from people who were trying to lie to me, just like, it's a game of telephone and shit spreads and it's not always right. You do the best you can. And if you fuck something up, you say, hey, it wasn't intentional, but this needs to be corrected, or this was wrong. But you don't just regurgitate what the police tell you or what corporate, like perfect example, Amazon, when I covered the death of Pashan Brown, who was a 38-year-old Amazon worker, Black woman, single mother, they had her COVID testing, putting swabs up people's noses. She's not a doctor. She's not a nurse. You don't know about this story? I'll send you.
Where was this located? Was this Bessemer or was this in a different?
Virginia. So they had her literally playing doctor, nurse, COVID swabbing people all day. They didn't give her the proper masks, shields. They didn't even have the plexiglass when she was doing it. 38 years old. She drops dead. Now, I can't report that she died of COVID because they wouldn't do it. They wouldn't help the family with an autopsy. Actually, Amazon labor union's first union hall in Staten Island, obviously they were, their historic victory, is named the Pashan Brown Union Hall after her. I was the only fucking person that reported it. CNBC, a reporter approached Amazon about it. Amazon lied to them, and CNBC reporter backed down. But Amazon said, oh, well, yeah, we could talk, but it has to be off the record. I said, I'm not going to talk to you off the record. They said, well, what the family's saying is not true. It's like, so tell me that on the record, or even on background. I'll talk to you a little bit on background, so I won't attribute it to your name, but, a source close to Amazon. No. Now, why wouldn't they talk to me on record? Why wouldn't they talk to me on background? Well, very simply, if they talk on record, there's legal liability for Amazon for this poor Black woman suddenly dropping dead at 38 with no health problems. She didn't have any health problems. on background. Basically, it's tied to Amazon. So because they're used to just spinning reporters with their lies and bullshit. And guess what? Most of these reporters, there's a lot of, and I know some of them. There's a lot of reporters that work for corporate media that actually are good reporters, that are badass, that do go for the jugular of power. And then when they're working on a story, it gets killed by their editor, who probably has orders above them to kill it. I mean, you worked in broadcast for a while. You know what I'm talking about. So, moral of the story, don't take Amazon's word for it, and don't take the Baltimore Police Department's word for it. Actually look into things. And reality, and it's hard because people want clicks and people want to go viral, but it's better to be right than first. It's better to be right than first in my is what I think about, being a journalist. So, yeah, thanks for bringing that to my attention, because honestly, and there's been great documentaries about this. Actually, there's a series on Netflix right now that I think it's called the web, lies, and the internet. And it's all about conspiracy theories and how they and misinformation and how they excel on the internet. But you basically have these incubators, which are the Jack Posobiec's and the Daily Mails and the Fox Newses, and even liberal media. And then the official sources like the police departments and corporations and the politicians. And honestly, most of the reporting you see is just regurgitating either outright lies like this, or just political spin coming from political campaigns and government officials. We have two sources telling us something, so let's report it. Whether it's right or not, who knows? But it helps push the narrative. That's what most political media is, just pushing spin. So anyway, that's my long monologue on the subject.
Just the ways in which America is such a pro-police state. It's so insidious and so deeply woven into really the fabric of our lives. It's almost invisible, right? And a lot of people, I mean, I'm hyper conscious of it because this is an area in which I've been reporting on for many, many years, like the ways in which police lie about their conduct. They just lie. And the lack of scrutiny that comes from reporters and that comes from media outlets who basically accommodate the police by reporting their version of events because of access. They want that access. They want to be able to talk to the chief of police or have a good relationship with the mayor or the members of the city council. And you're not going to do that as a journalist by criticizing those that are in power and those that are wielding power, usually in a way that is harmful to the most vulnerable in that city. And, when you look at Baltimore specifically, I mean, Baltimore is experiencing just very bad rates of all kinds of crimes, and specifically gun violence, right? But then when you peel it back, right, you look at the ways that Baltimore City has been historically disinvested. I would imagine not so much unlike Jackson, Mississippi. The infrastructure there has suffered from historic disinvestment. The public school system has suffered from historic disinvestment. But you know what has not been disinvested? The fucking police. The police somehow managed to get their budgets met and exceeded every single fiscal year. And that is reflected in the state of the city, right? The police are doing amazing. The rest of the city, not so much. And when you are a resident and you're paying taxes, or even if you're not fucking paying taxes, it don't matter. If you live in Baltimore and you see a representative of the Baltimore Police Department put out a known lie, demonstrably say something that they know to be false and untrue, what kind of confidence can you have in the reformation of said system? What kind of confidence can you have in the mayor and in the chief of police that says, we're really working to make sure our officers have sensitivity training and understand, their preconceived biases? There's no confidence there. There's none whatsoever. So what are the options, right? We're just left to this democratically elected leadership, and not to say if it was Republicans, it'd be any better. No, it would not. But let's call out the people that are running the thing right now, and it is the Democrats that run Baltimore. And they are never going to come up with a good enough reason to defund the police, to abolish the police. That would be ideal, because the police hold a specific duty. They are there to keep the poors in check. They are there to keep the white neighborhoods of Baltimore City feeling safe. And they're there to intimidate the Black youth of the city, to let them know that there is a jail cell waiting for them. The kids can't lie to the police, but the police can lie to us and all of us and to the whole country about the bad things that they made up about Baltimore this time.
You know what? To this and everything else we've talked about today, Kim, I say
enough is enough. Enough is enough.
sorry, had to do it. Yeah, I completely agree. I completely agree. And honestly, at a certain point, folks, we could all march, but something else that got to happen. I'm not calling for violence, but I am saying we need an economic boycott. Okay, there's a reason they broke up Occupy Wall Street. Okay, and that was barely organized. They were leaderless, right? But that was getting a little too pesky. And then Michael Bloomberg sent his police in to crush the people. That was a decade ago, and things have gotten a lot worse since then, if you ask me, for everybody, but obviously Black people. So, yeah. I don't know. Let me read some super chats. Peace, Walker, $5. All this climate disaster is happening, and our political leaders still are doing nothing. I'm almost convinced they want the human race to die. Well, yeah, because most of them are near death anyway. So what do they care? I mean, the average age of our leadership is fucking like 80.
80.
So what do they care? They're on their way out anyway. I don't even think they care about their grandkids. Humorous, $20. Thank you so much. Andrew, $5. I'm so effing broke. What are we supposed to do to change the situation? And I am white and male. Well, I thank you for the $5. Don't make your situation worse if you're broke, but I appreciate the super chat. Yeah, I got to tell you, Kim, there's a lot of white people that I have seen out consistently at these protests. During when I was down in Selma, actually years ago, covering the bridge crossing. There's in murals some of the white people that died trying to work with the freedom fighters. So I think white people, there's a big role for white people, and white people are hurting too economically. You're not getting shot in less than a second in bed, but there are white people hurting, and I don't know the answer to how to change the situation, but the more white people that get involved and take it like you have to change your thinking and take it like this could happen to you, even though it can't. But you have to take it personally, like this has happened to your fellow man and woman, white, Black, or otherwise. Like we need to take it as a critical top issue, which did happen for a little bit during the George Floyd protests, but then everybody went back home and back to sleep. If you want to say anything to that.
So I think white broke is a little different than Black broke, and I think the basic ways in which wealth in this country works. Let's say broke white folks exist, and I know they do, but their idea of broke is a little different than Black people's idea of broke, which is broke, right? Which is unhoused, unfed, unhealth cared for. And I'm not saying that there aren't white people that are in those same situations. There absolutely are. But when we simply look at the numbers, the numbers just don't bear that out, right? Like the majority of Black people earn under $50,000 a year, which again is still kind of on the high side. And I think the average salary for the highest earner, the white male, is significantly higher than that. I know the one stat I can recall in terms of salary inequality is that a Black person, a Black college degree holder with a bachelor's degree, still makes $10,000 less than a white man with a high school diploma. Okay, and even again, if we talking white broke and Black broke, them brokes look way they look way different. And I don't doubt that white folks are out here struggling, but as you said, they are not likely to be victims of state-sponsored violence at the same rates, and certainly not in the same way. At the end of the day, even with this Trump shit, we are still seeing the ways that white privilege is fully on display. Do you think for a second that any other government official, especially a non-white, non-male one, if they were in possession of the documents that Trump was in possession, do you think they would have not hesitated to draw up an arrest warrant for this person, to literally kick in their door, not ask them politely for 15 months? Would you please mind bringing us back our classified documents, please, Mr. Trump, please, sir? I mean, that same sort of consideration just never existed for non-white, non-male people, right? By and large.
Five black people stormed the Capitol to stop a post office from being named after someone. They'd be shot on the spot. So
they would have ran out of bullets on January 6th if that had been black people. They would have ran out of bullets. And that's just it. Like, I want for people to sort of, the American mythology that we're all created equal, that everybody is treated equally under the law. Again, that is shit that you tell kids, okay? Like, adults in the real world know better. We know that there is different treatment, there is different levels of accessibility, different levels of class ascension, if any, of class mobility. That seldom exists for poor people, especially black and brown folks, right? So I don't discount the ways in which capitalism is fucking white people as badly, or I can't say worse, but capitalism is absolutely fucking white people also, right? But they are still the ones that have the closest proximity to the wealth, the closest proximity to the power. And so long as that dynamic remains in place, I feel as though most white people are disincentivized to change the way that America is, because overwhelmingly, even the ones that are hurting are still doing better than black folks. You know what I'm saying? So there has to be enough of them to be fed up with this in order for this thing to get all the way brought down. And so long as people like Joe Biden and these other white liberals are insistent of adhering to the institution and trying to preserve it by all means, they're trying to hold on to a system that has intentionally left out so many people. That's why when I hear the rhetoric about democracy being destroyed, I'm like, destroy that shit. Get the fuck rid of that shit, because that democracy doesn't apply to me in my community, and it never has. So why would I be invested in trying to uphold a system that has always tried to keep us out and keep us down, and continues to do so, even in these very glaring ways, like we're seeing down in Mississippi, and the ways in which we're seeing gun violence affect black people, like we did that young man in Columbus, Ohio. So this is not a system, nor a country, nor an economic system that I'm interested in upholding at all. It needs to go.
Absolutely. And I think what you're pointing out, yeah, there might be white people struggling now, but you didn't start, 10 miles behind the starting line, right? Like, if it's life is a race, black people have been behind the entire time, where white people got, a head start, a long head start.
Well, in America, let's not in global history, right?
Humorous, $20. Kim, I'm a patron of your show. I hope that I just misunderstood something that was going on. I would hate to stop being a patron on your show. I couldn't understand why you asked me what I was doing there anyway. I don't know. You know what that's about?
Yes and no. So Humorous is a patron, or it just became a new patron, and they identified themselves to me as a white man during the show. And I don't remember ever asking them, what are they doing there? Because I have lots of white viewers who are always welcome. But what I did tell them, I said, this is my channel, that is Burn It Down with Kim Brown, is a black woman centered channel, amplifying black voices first and foremost. And I'm not there to center white comfort at all. You know what I'm saying? So white people have to watch my show with the understanding is that I'm going to drag white people. I'm going to drag white supremacy. But if you are not a racist, and you are not, reveling in your privilege and not understanding the views and experiences of other marginalized people, then I'm not talking about you when I'm dragging white folks. So we may have had a misunderstanding or miscommunication, Humorous, but I don't shit on people for being white. I shit on people for being racist.
Yeah. Well, Humorous is a good fella. Thank you, Humorous, by the way. I wasn't live yesterday, but I know you donated a big super chat. So thank you, Humorous. And I've spoken with Humorous. He is definitely one of the good ones, and has been generous. So keep supporting Kim, and everybody should support Kim. She's great. So definitely check out her channel. It's in the description. Subscribe so we can get those numbers up on Burn It Down with Kim Brown. But Humorous, you are a friend of all of us. Das Bosch Fleisch, $4.99. I'm always forgetting. That's euros. Okay. Euros. Is Biden trying to get a voter group with this action, or he just wants enough cops to become authoritarian? I think what he's doing really they're like fighting over like the suburban woman who kind of goes back and forth between the Democrats and Republicans. The Democrats actually won the midterms in 2018 because a lot of those suburban women fled Trump because they were just sick of Trump. So they went to the Democratic side. Glenn Youngkin in Virginia won the Virginia governor because those suburban women who fled the Republicans for the Democrats because they hated Trump swung a little bit more back to Republicans because now Trump was out of office and they like the pencil nerd sweater vest authoritarian and Glenn Youngkin. So I think Biden's trying to play to like the suburban woman with this like, tough on crime shit. But yeah, I mean,
So I have a question, Jordan, though. I talked about this morning on the Remix Morning Show. Like when it comes to these 100,000 cops that Biden wants to put on the streets, I would imagine some of those cops are going to go into abortion restrictive areas. So are those cops going to be deployed against pregnant people to be checking up on their period data, to be making sure that they don't have any unplanned pregnancies or pregnancies that are not accounted for? Like Joe Biden is actually playing a really even more dangerous game than I think we even realize. Because if you're going to put the police in these abortion restrictive states, are they going to be deployed to monitor the health data, and I would imagine the internet privacy searching data of people that could become pregnant and who are looking to figure out what to do with perhaps an unplanned pregnancy? So I just wanted to put that in as food for thought.
It's a great point. I don't know the answer, but in this fucked up world, in this fucked up country, perhaps. D Nord, YouTube member, Status Coup, yet nothing gets fixed ever. Go green. Hey, educating the masses is the first step to fixing. But thanks for the support. Humorous, another $20. I swear I cry for this world because someone has to. Falls we had to do was take care of the garden and each other, and everything would have been given to us for free. I'm not really a biblical man with the garden and everything, but I will say it's not all hopeless. I wouldn't be doing this if I thought everything was hopeless. There's more of us than them. But people need to get a little bit fucking angrier and stop accepting crumbs. I'm tired of seeing Dark Brandon memes like, oh, Joe Biden, canceled $10,000 in debt. Does it help a lot of people? Yeah. Is it enough? No. If that's enough, and you want to cheer Biden on for the bare minimum, then you need to re-examine your expectations across the board.
I want people to like nice things. I want people to understand that they deserve nice things. You deserve nice things. It's not why do we have to suffer under capitalism literally for our entire lives? No, y'all. There is a different alternative available. We just have to choose it. Absolutely.
Teresa, $5. Thank you. Cat Faye, YouTube member for a year, $20. Thank you. Status Coup Jordan ought to get a Pulitzer for that Flint story. You know what? I'll just take Flint having clean water. That would be much better than a fucking Pulitzer. I'll probably never get an award because that would be the antithesis of media. But my reward would be some fucking justice for the people of Flint. Maybe somebody going to prison for poisoning them. I don't know if that's asking for too much. I got another big Flint story that I've been working on. Unfortunately, it's sitting collecting dust with a corporate outlet that has said it's going to publish it. Dealing with these outlets, it's kind of a damned if you do, damned if you do. If I don't deal with them, A, less eyeballs on the story. B, publishing with bigger outlets provides you the legal resources because government officials, if you're basically exposing them, could try to sue you, could try to compel you for sources. So that's why I go with these bigger outlets to publish stories. But between sitting with editors, sitting with lawyers, something that should be out in a few weeks can take months. But I do have another major Flint story, and I'm also working on a book about Flint. So stay tuned for that. Humorous, $10 because Jordan does what he does. And as far as I know, no other media does do that. That's why we need to support them. We the people, for the people. Thank you, Humorous. Environmental Coffee House, $4.99. Jordan, I'm proud of you. Sandy, thank you, Sandy. Give Kim some love too. Humorous, $5. Too goddamn humorous. YouTube trying to block my super chats again. Yeah, I have heard that where people try to leave a super chat and like it takes them 4 or 5 times. So it's not only enough that YouTube takes 30% of said super chat, they then try to block people. So thank you, Google. Holy shit, Humorous. I don't know, man. I'm gonna have to send you some like fucking champagne for all these super. $250. This is all for the people watching. Welcome. I hope you stay. Please press that like button. It's the only way to get the algorithms to work. Thank you very, very much. I very much appreciate Humorous. It's tough times for a lot of people. So any that kind of support really. And by the way, like I got to pay people too. So you're helping keeping the lights on. Humorous, another $10. Jordan, it's better to tell the damn truth and be a total failure to humanity than be a pawn in the corporate scheme of things. Trust me, I've had offers to move over to the corporate side. Yeah, I'd get a lot more views and probably get a lot more
money. You would get way more money.
But, I don't need that bullshit. Andre Gale, $20. For other like humorists who feel attacked for obvious critiques about racism and not the white race in general, it's better to ask yourselves why you felt it had anything to do with you. Jordan, thanks for all the work you do. Yeah, I don't know. I can't speak for him. I think it was just a misunderstanding because I think
so too.
Yeah, I think humorous. And honestly, like, I'll tell you, it's really been good to see, particularly the counter protests at Proud Boys events and the counter protest at, fucking QAnon and, all these crazy MAGA. It's a lot of white people. A lot of black people too. But there's a lot of white people I've seen out in Black Lives Matter, but against other movements that are clearly, it's not dog whistling, just like blaring the sirens against diversity, against black people, against LGBTQ people, the trans community. There's a lot more people coming out. Your parting thoughts before we burn this one down.
I'm thinking about the young man's family in Columbus, Ohio. And I am imploring like everybody. This is a us responsibility. Like if we are residing in this country, then it is on us to challenge the system of power that is in place. And it is imperative that we do that. And the issue of policing is literally a life or death issue for people from specific communities, and not just Black, but gay community. The indigenous people get murdered by police at ridiculous rates. This is a human issue. This is a human rights issue. The United States is in violation of human rights with this policing shit. And if you agree with that, even if it's not you being affected, it's time for you to stand up, say something, and more importantly, get out in the streets and do something.
Damn right. And people, I just put the link in there. Make sure you go subscribe to Kim Brown's channel. Tuesdays and Fridays, 7 o'clock Eastern time. She's live. Has great guests. She's focused on a lot of the same issues we are. So definitely go subscribe to Burn It Down with Kim Brown. Thank you, Kim.
Thank you.
She'll be back at it next week solo on Wednesday on Status Coup. And I'll see you guys back here tomorrow. Have a good night.